Nah, no
No,
problems, no
you have
problems.
time.
I appreciate it. I got your box. I got to put your name on your box though, but I appreciate you coming, my man. I appreciate you coming. Oh, let me move over here. Boom. Here we go. Okay, what's up, everybody? We are in the pregame show. We're just chatting it up until 8 o'clock hits. So this is just a pre-show. And John, we was talking before I hit the stream button. Go ahead, John. What we was talking about? And welcome, Kit.
I think we were talking about. I think you were mentioning about like that we need a party that's so left that makes AOC and Squad moderate, right? And I think Gabe and I were talking about that's what the Justice Democrats supposed to be doing. And we're saying that sometimes that's what I'm saying. Sometimes they don't go left enough, but they do it good enough that they put some candidate there. So I do think that in a way we kind of do have to get them, but it's always a lose-lose situation, right? Because if we go too left, then it's like crazy. But we do have to find a way to.
Women of the Squad are killing it. You just don't want to admit it. The women are. Have you seen their responses?
Yeah. Finally, they finally got one message right, and like they finally.
Rashida is the most consistent person. She is like the most. She is so incredibly consistently herself. But always consistently has the right.
I don't have a problem.
The women of the Squad. I don't know what y'all want. Y'all want the Squad to go in the middle of the chamber and like pour oil on themselves.
Listen, I don't know why people always think I don't have a problem with the Squads. Like I told her, like sometimes, like I don't know, like sometimes I call a spade a spade. It's like sometimes like to say AOC, like to me, AOC is like a B plus student. Like if I would have to
calling a spade, you call a spade like a heart. Like they're like.
So you think the Squad? So if you were to have to give the Squad a grade, since like they be in the Squad, you were giving them A?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would. Because
I have to disagree with
this is getting spicy.
I give them a B.
You also got to think about this tactically, right?
Go ahead.
That one, like people like progressives online and leftists online want the Squad to move as if they have like crazy numbers. You also have to understand, like when you have a little bit of numbers, you have to move smart and you have to move like every single move has to be intentional and very like critical and crisp. Some things like they simply just don't have the numbers to do. But they can get the numbers. They can get the numbers by continuing to push their message, continuing to push in the media a certain way, continue to push their digital, all of that stuff. And then hopefully we can get more people in there. Again, like that's not a passive kind of thing. We need organizations that aren't just the Justice Democrats really pushing to get progressive folks into office who are solidly left. But like sometimes they just don't have the numbers, and y'all want them to do things that like.
Wait.
Hold on, let me moderate. Kit, go ahead, Kit.
If I can interject here. So here's the thing. You know, the Squad does have the numbers. They have a large social media following. Now, I understand that there's a lot of reservations of holding town halls or big group protests, but there's no excuse of doing an online town hall event very similar to the Force the Vote for Medicare for All that AOC or the Squad can rally all together. I mean, AOC alone has 12 million people following her on social media. Her name and presence has the ability to basically summon an army of volunteers, of progressives, of independents. I would say, like, in theory, look, are there enough progressives in the House and Senate? No, there isn't. But going through the corporatist Democratic Party, where we're seeing them, again, pretend like they don't have power or they don't have a following or that they themselves cannot flex their new power that, again, they have at their fingertips is kind of insulting because they ran for much needed political change. And they do have the ability to step up, but we're seeing them squander it. And look, when it comes down to force the vote for Medicare for All, or even with Cenk Uygur's force the vote for 15, they have the ability to be their own voting bloc. There were 15 congressmen and women that were on the force the vote petition. And that alone is a voting bloc on itself. But yet, at the same time, what's the excuse of just turning a blind eye to Sinema or Joe Manchin, who can get whatever, whenever they want? And then there's conservative Democrats in the House that are saying that they want to do their own force to vote for the SALT tax so that it can be put into Joe Biden's infrastructure bill. The progressives in the House and Senate, especially AOC, they can do a lot of these great things, but I'm noticing that there's a lack of willpower and nothing more but feel-good tweets. And if I had to personally grade them, it's between a C+ or a B-, and I'm being generous here because right now, going into 2022, what have the Democrats, including the Justice Democrats, the progressive Democrats, accomplished for us? We didn't get $15 an hour. We're not getting our $2,000 stimulus check. It was $1,400, even though it was $2,000. Nothing for medical debt forgiveness, nothing for student debt forgiveness. We're still stuck in regime change wars. We're still not doing anything about climate change, but yet the conservative blue dog Democrats get what they want, but yet that's not what the Democrats ran on in 2022. And for all those who were browbeaten progressives or independents like, oh, you got to vote for Biden because he's the lesser of two evils, nothing has fundamentally changed because the kids are still in cages. I'm wondering when AOC is going to go to those detention centers and, basically, have the cameras there calling out Joe Biden, because we only saw one detention center, only one, but there are still numerous others that haven't been inspected yet. These are some very concerning things that the Democrats, including AOC and her colleagues, need to consider, especially going into 2022.
All right,
because the fact is, these primaries statistically have a low voter turnout.
Yeah, let's
This
see.
is a good one for the show.
Before we move on, though, the fact that someone can say they don't have the numbers and you respond with, but look how many followers they have on Twitter, shows that you are highly online. And this is what I'm talking about. There is a difference between being highly online and knowing how to function and move within Congress itself. Like those things are drastically different. And even having a lot of followers online, like I can tell you,
you don't think they're interconnected?
You have a bunch of bots as followers. Like that doesn't actually mean anything. It also doesn't necessarily equate to being able to mobilize all those numbers either, for a bunch of reasons that have to do with capacity, have to do with
Imani.
the working class being able to go out. So when we talk about numbers, we're talking about what we can do within Congress, not a follower.
Let me moderate real quick. Let me jump in. Hold on. Let me jump in. I want to moderate real quick. I just want to make sure I'm giving people different times. So we heard Kit, we heard Imani. Kit, take note of what I know you want to jump in right now. Take note of what you're about to say. I just want to bring somebody else in. Like John, did you want to say something on what
I want to say, I think the squad has the same amount of power, if not more, than Joe Manchin, and Joe Manchin's running the show. Like that's what I'm saying. That's why I would disagree with the A grade just because of that. Because they forget, okay, they didn't force the vote, they didn't whatever. Like, all right, they did what they have to do, but they still don't go in. Like, what happened now with Biden and the $35 million that they giving to that bill that he signed up? And so I just don't think that they're saying they have the same message, but I don't think they're using the power that they have correctly. And we already 2022 is around the corner, and it may be a missed opportunity. That's just my take. But I'm not a squad hater. I always tell them, I give them a B. I don't think they're perfect. They do make mistakes, but they haven't used the power the way they should. To my opinion. I got you. Completely wrong, but that's just my opinion.
Got you. So before I go back to Kit, Gabe, did you want to say something or been done?
So just on Imani's point, I have close to 1,500 followers on IG, but the engagement is maybe 10%, if not less. So IG, social media, like look at Social Blade, right? It's all numbers. The key thing is engagement. And for me, the only thing I would say about the more followers you have is the more opportunities that you give people a chance to educate, because that's what I love the most about AOC is when she goes on like IG Live, on Twitch. She makes it more. She makes politics, I'll say, at least from my perspective as someone that's never come into politics prior to this, is she gives it to me at a level of understanding that I can that I understand. And that's really where I see her reaches when it comes to her numbers on social media versus really changing policy.
All right, Gabe, you want to say something? And then I'm going to go to Kit.
I'm tired of Joe Manchin running the country. I think that forget the squad. It would only take one vote from Elizabeth Warren or from Bernie or from any quote unquote progressive in the Senate could block everything just the same way Manchin and Sinema could. So I want to see that on the Senate side. On the House side, I think that we do need to get more Justice Democrats in it, but I don't have any confidence that they're going to use that power when they get it. You know, right now they're just going along to get along, and they're giving up fights even before they started. They said they would, vote for Joe Biden no matter what. There are no preconditions. They said they would vote for all these things with no preconditions. And even, it's disappointing. And, I'm very impatient because we have waited for, at least in my adult life since Obama to get these progressive policies passed. And he was supposed to be our savior. So I'm tired of waiting. I'm not going to wait another 16 years.
All right.
What are you going to do other than wait?
Yeah, Kid, I'm gonna give Kid the last word because it's 8 o'clock. Hold on,
okay,
Kid.
Sorry.
No worries. Much love. Yo, this is this is my dream. This is why I started the show. This is, we have the no cancel zone and we're gonna talk about topics, but we're having this nice conversation. But what I love about it is even though Kid doesn't know Imani, this is progressive love. This is a progressive family. This is what family does. And we definitely don't want to do it in front of Republicans. You know what I'm saying? People outside the family. So this is what it's all about. So Kid, I'm going to give you the last word. And then we got to start the show because it's already 8 o'clock. Go ahead, Kid.
Right, absolutely. So I'll just keep it short. And to Imani's point, look, I understand. Look, I'm not fully involved in the social media, but to ignore those numbers, to say that what's on social media and what we also have to deal with in regards to realm of politics, to say that they're not intertwined, or one day, or as we are living in this day and age of social media, that they're not already intertwined, is a big mistake. And that the fact that the squad should use this opportunity right now, even if it doesn't meet up to anyone's requirements, let us try that method of actually getting that social media army going, because we saw firsthand on the campaign trail, especially during 2016 with Bernie Sanders, how he was able to successfully use social media. And even to some extent, let's even bring in Barack Obama in 2008 in social media's early infancy, if we want to even call it that. It can be done, and it is an effective tool. Is it reliable? No, you got to use everything. You got to use different forms of tactics, even if it's a pincer movement of using what we have to deal with in regards to reality of politics of within Congress. And let's face it, that is a real reality, but also not using the pressure of social media and the power that it can potentially have to actually bring in much needed change, and also assure our progressives, our allies in the House or Senate, whether they're third party or Democrats. I think that's a big boost for them, because then they could say, I have this political following. I have all these people from my constituents who are supporting me, plus people outside of my district who agree with my point of view. It is an effective tool. And the fact that AOC and the squad are not really fully implementing social media to do their own town halls, if not even to try it, is a big mistake. And I do hope that they do eventually change that mindset, because it's needed now, especially if we want to have more than $15 an hour, Medicare for all, student debt forgiveness, and so many other progressive issues that I know all of us agree on. But we have to be aggressive and stop being polite or worrying on how corporate media will present it, because corporate media is not our friend.
Yeah, that's the truth. I know that for sure. Gabe got a little 2-second thing to say. Go ahead, quick, Gabe.
I think we just need to use our power to fight for popular policies, because right now we have, if Joe Manchin will block everything for unpopular policies, I think we will win the battle in the media and with the people. Forget social media, just in general. All of our policies, we know that they're the most popular when you look at all the polls. So we have to use that strength. We have to block the stimulus and say, hey, we're not going to get out the stimulus because we want more. And people are going to be like, yes, we want more. Look at what's happening now. We could probably get into it later in the show, but wages are having to rise because people aren't going to go back to work for poverty wages. That's directly related to the stimulus. Imagine the stimulus was even more. So it's exciting times now.
Yeah, let's start the show, baby. Let's do it.
That was a hot free show.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is CaseStudyQB, and we are the political junkies back at it again. Man, we had a spicy pre-show, and it's all progressive love. That's what I love about the show, what I love about my people. I have faith that we can all what's the word? We can disagree to disagree.
Civilized.
There you go. Thank you, kid. We can be civilized, and we don't have to cuss each other out or call each other shill and all this stuff. So this was a great conversation, and we're going to have more. Matter of fact, let's go and let me show you what we are in for. boom, for the no-cow zone discussion. So this is a no-cow zone, 2 no-cow zone, also known as the no-cancel zone discussions that we're going to have today. The first one is, what would you do if you ran for office and you knew the opposition stole the election? Would you make noise about the election fraud, accuse the opponent of cheating and demand justice, or concede defeat because you don't want to undermine the public's faith in democracy? So this is going to be an interesting one. And then number 2 is, which would you rather have? The COVID season. So what I mean by the COVID season is just COVID period, from last year. When did it start happening? February, around that time. And the whole thing, like people dying, the whole COVID period. Would you rather have that or a second Trump term? That's an interesting conundrum, right?
Gabe, we getting canceled tonight.
Oh, somebody's getting canceled. All right. So with that said, let's go to I'm going to give it to Mendon, who's going to real quick, we're going to give some love. Oh, one more intro. I just had to do it just for the fun of it.
It's for Carlos. He likes to beat.
Yeah, just for Carlos. But I want Mendon to give some love to our chat. I know E. Hella's in the building. I know Kit knows E. Hella. That's our people. Uh-oh. Oh, wait. Hold on, Mendon. Yeah, your mic. Your mic.
Fixed up mic.
Somebody canceled your mic. John, I don't know if you see the chats by any chance?
I cannot see the chat.
Okay, Gabe. I know you can't see the chat, Gabe.
Can you guys hear me now?
I can't see you.
Okay, yeah, Gabe. I can hear you, Bendon. Go ahead.
I think that's Carlos trying to set me up.
Yeah. I hear you. You're good now. Go ahead.
Shout out Carlos, Alan Amberster, E. Hella, Jesus.
Shout out to E. Hella.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And because Carlos isn't here, shout out to his FaZe team that won this weekend.
All right.
That's very conciliatory.
Yeah. I want to talk for Carlos and Ari. The Knicks and the Hawks are in the first round together. So, I'm a Knicks fan. He's a Hawks fan. So we're going to be bumping heads when we come back on the show. We're going to be talking trash at some point. So, anyway, I want to show this tweet real quick. Here's a tweet that says, from Ben Norton. He said, while Israel apartheid regime is massacring Palestinian civilians trapped in Gaza prison, Joe Biden just signed a deal for $735 million. So that's kind of like just approving of what they're doing while in the midst of them causing carnage in Gaza. And it's just terrible. But the main reason I brought this up was it showed in that thread that Obama gave $38 billion over 10 years to Israel for their. I gotta turn that off. Much love.
One more intro.
I know, one more time. And so that's pretty much 3.8 billion a year. And I mean, this is directly going to their military efforts. So we're directly funding the destruction of the Palestinians. So I'm gonna give it to the floor. Anyone who wants to jump in real quick on that?
I'm stealing. I forget if it was Kyle or Jimmy who said this, but I don't know how on earth we're funding another country that has single payer when we don't have single payer over here. We shouldn't be sending them $1. That's regardless of the atrocities that are occurring. But even when you look at the atrocities that are occurring and that have occurred, this isn't new. This isn't something new. This is something that's been going on for 40 years. And we continue to enable it. So we really have to. I don't know the solution. I don't know, because
like the ironic thing is there's this clip of Joe Biden, this old clip of Joe Biden in early 90s, late 80s.
Yeah, John was talking about
he's like going in on apartheid in South Africa. And he's on the right side of it. And he's going in talking about how we need to end it and how it's so oppressive, blah, 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 etc. And now we get here, we have another apartheid state, another state that's inflicting apartheid on people. And he's just like, oh, nope, we're gonna support it. It's so ironic and ridiculous.
I would also like to back up your claims as well, because again, with the apartheid in South Africa, it was a global community effort. And again, it took some time to get rid of that apartheid in South Africa, and the scars still remain. It's still a long healing process, and its legacy is still impacting a lot of people in South Africa. But the global community spoke out, and eventually it was removed. It was disbanded. It was stopped. Mm-hmm. What needs to be done, look, we can't rely on politicians. I mean, yes, they are a key resource, But in order for there to be real effective change that deal with the apartheid that is in Israel and its genocidal tactics, let's face it. I mean, we're seeing the Red Crescent building getting bombed. We're seeing a building that had the press get bombed. We're seeing civilians, women and children getting bombed. It's going to require a global community effort for everyone. When the people lead, that's when the leaders follow. When the people hit the streets calling for the end of this apartheid regime that is in Israel and what it's doing to the Palestinian people, then there will be some change. But the key thing is for people to step up, activist groups to actually rally people to get out there in the streets, do whatever step is necessary so that there can be once again, a concentrated global effort to end this apartheid that we're seeing in Israel. It was done so with South Africa, and that was before the power of the internet. It can be done, and we could use the internet as well as every other tactic necessary for there to be real effective change. Don't tell me that it can't be done. But it's also important to note that, again, when we deal with something like the United Nations, where, again, there was a recent vote, and someone correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but I think there was a recent vote that was taking place within last week or this week or something like that, where they're calling for Palestine for the bombings to stop, for the war.
Yeah, a ceasefire.
And the U.S. vetoed it.
Well, yeah, I heard about that too. I want to show this video since you brought up that building, right? And this was a Case Study QB clip that kind of went it got 5,000 views. So I'm gonna just play this real quick.
They say they've provided evidence. Antony Blinken, we showed, said we've not seen that evidence. Have you seen the evidence? Who has seen the evidence? And what are they saying about whether they can prove that this was a legitimate military target?
I have not seen the evidence. I've worked out of that building. I saw no evidence myself that Hamas was using it at all for any purpose. But what Israeli military official did tell me is that he described the evidence in somewhat vague terms. He said that Hamas military intelligence, the equivalent of not a CIA, but an intelligence office, was operating out of the building. These would people who would be sitting on computers. He said that the Hamas research and development wing, also people sitting in offices on computers, not necessarily fighters with guns, was operating in that building, and that there was equipment either on or in the building that was used to disrupt military purposes, or used to disrupt Israeli military capabilities. And I pressed on this. I said, well, what kind of equipment? What do you mean? Is this a jamming equipment? How could they put jamming equipment in a building that's full of television stations? And the official wouldn't get any more specific. So it was characterized as that, but many people who worked in that building dispute that. They say it was a media building, it had long been a media building, and that it was not a media headquarters.
Boom, boom. So look at that. This is actually a first account, because he said himself that he used to work, because of course he's a foreign correspondent. He used to work out of that building. He said, when I was there, I never seen Hamas in the building, and even the people, he asked for evidence and they were so vague. What do you guys think about this one?
Well, here's the thing. When you tell a lie, whether it's a sloppy lie or a very well-constructed lie, you want to know what those two things have in common is that they all fall apart in the end. A sloppy lie, of course, right there. I mean, let's face it. Hamas was not in that building. That was a building for the press, and the Israeli military destroyed it. There was no proof, no evidence, and that person that gave the statement couldn't back anything up. Exactly. And a well-constructed lie, well, you could talk about how there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and for a while, everyone was going along with it until, like all lies, it falls apart.
Imani, I'm going to go to Imani real quick. I'm sorry, kid. Go ahead, Imani.
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, listen, we're at a point where there's mountains of data. Like, I think we tend to do this thing where we're like, collect more data, collect more evidence, look at more and more and more what they're doing. We have mountains of data. We don't need any more data. We know that Israel is an apartheid state. We know that they commit war crimes. We know that they're committing a genocide. Like, we don't need any more data. It's happening. It's the question of what are we going to do about it? And, to touch back on a little bit of, how the global community came together, there were governments who placed sanctions on South Africa. Yeah. And that is what actually got them to move. It was activists who pushed governments to then place sanctions on South Africa during their apartheid that then got them to stop because their pockets started suffering and the economy of the country started tanking, right? So we need, again, it's always about that inside-outside game, always about the activists and the people, as well as governments and governmental power pushing to make these changes. But we don't need any more data. Why'd they even ask that question? Like, of course, there was nothing there that they should be bombing. Of course. I mean, we're past the point where we need any more data. Like, we're at the point where we need to be doing like serious sanctions against Israel and really like giving them real consequences if they don't stop the nonsense.
Yeah, I wonder if their justification was because their Hamas version of the CIA was in that building, right? And not even like they had arms or guns or anything. They just had the computers in there. And with all the carnage that our CIA, we have the history of blowback and of our CIA conducting coups around the world, and even the civil rights movement of how they assassinated Fred Hampton, or not even the CIA, but the FBI's helped assassinate Fred Hampton, and basically state-sanctioned assassinations. Does that justify like somebody bombing our CIA building in Langley or something like that? Like, I don't understand why they would even use that as an excuse. Like, if they weren't directly hurting people, how can you say, oh, just because there's their version of the CIA had an office, that justifies blowing up the whole building with everyone else's equipment? It showed, I watched a Kyle Kalinske clip where he showed the person who owned the building was just pleading with the Israel defense person to say, please don't bomb it, or can we just wait 10 minutes so we could go in there and get some of our equipment? And they didn't even allow for that. John, you want to jump in?
No, I was just going to touch base real quick on the, I think this is where, I think I read it somewhere, I'm not sure. I think that the days passed to challenge the bill, but I think someone, I forgot which one it was from the squad, said that they were going to challenge it. And they're going to try to see. So this would be a perfect example. I know we're talking about in the pre-show. If there's something that to do, that the squad use their power and make sure that the 735 million doesn't get out the door.
Yeah.
Congress does have the power to stop it.
100%. All right, so I'm going to go to the first. We got trivia. We got a couple trivia questions, and I'm going to go to the first one, and then we're going to go into our no calzone question. So here's the first trivia. And I thought this was a fun one. I talked to my wife. She said, who cares? Let me read the questions. Machine Gun Kelly reveals this progressive helped him in a relationship with Megan Fox. Now, I had a conversation with my wife, and she said, who cares about this? I was like, this is a fun entertainment question. Why not? So we got Bernie Sanders, Jamal Bowman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. What you guys think? Okay, Gabe says Bernie.
Let's say Bernie.
I'm going Bernie.
Bernie. Kit, who you going with, Kit?
You know what? Let's try out Bernie. I'm gonna try out.
I'll bring it back up.
I think maybe he helped out.
The answer is Bernie Sanders. All right. So Bernie Sanders, Machine Gun Kelly reveals Bernie Sanders helped him in his relationship with Megan Fox. He basically helped him get a plane ticket to where he was in a different country. I'm not even gonna go into it, but did you guys have fun with that?
Technically, Bernie Sanders promoted or allowed Machine Gun Kelly to cheat on his current girlfriend.
Is that what it was? He had a current girlfriend? Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
There's some tea there.
Okay.
This is case study TMZ.
All right, so I don't know if you guys enjoyed that or not, but wifey, Mrs. Case Study QB.
It's different. It's different.
We having fun, Mrs. Case Study QB. All right, and then let me go on to, you know what? I'm just going to go straight to the next question, next fun question. Is this a real news headline? True or false? Yes, Biden is governing as a progressive, but that shouldn't surprise you. Is that a real news headline or no? True or false?
True. It is. It is. It's called gaslighting, baby.
I'm gonna go yes.
It is true, and it's from the Los Angeles Times. The yes, Biden is governing. Let me go back to Kit so he can show you. Go ahead, Kit.
Hang on. There we go.
Having fun with this. Yeah. So definitely, like Gabe said, more gaslighting. So let's go to the first no calzone discussion, and that is, what would you do if you ran for office and you knew the opposition stole the election? Would you make noise about the election fraud, accuse the opponent of cheating and demand justice, or concede defeat because you don't want to undermine the public's faith in democracy. And before I pass this to the panel, so I want to give two examples on both sides. So you had Al Gore back in 2000 when he actually won Florida. They counted up all the ballots in Florida like 6 months after Bush got into office, and they actually found he won. Right now, in that case, I would have came back from the dead from nowhere with my beard on if I was Al Gore, and I'd be like, "Hey, I won!" Like, as soon as people said 6 months, it could have been 2 years into it, and I would have been demanding for my seat. But me personally, and then of course you have famously Donald Trump, where he's saying that there's election fraud and all this stuff going on. So I'm gonna throw it to the panel. No calzone. Who got it? Who wants to jump in first?
What year is it?
What year is what? Oh, what year is it?
This is taking place.
Let's say it's happening right now. So let's say the 2022 election just ended, and let's say Bendone, you ran as a progressive candidate, and then you just found out that let's think about the primary, because establishment Democrats, they cheat all the time too. So let's say in your case, Bendone, it was the primary. The primary ended, and then the establishment person won. So let's say Nina Turner, she's about to do a primary, and let's say she lost unfortunately to the establishment candidate, but then she found out later that person cheated somehow. So is that a good example for you, Bendo?
Yeah, and the reason why I ask, again, to Kit's point, is social media changes it all. Right?
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
So now I'm on TikTok.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Getting my views up to get my story out there.
Okay, so let's say it's for this special election coming up. So we're in 2021. So let me throw this. I want to throw it to somebody. Anybody want to grab this? Like, give me some kind of signal. Okay, Kid.
Well, I've gone first, so
okay, Imani, go first. Go ahead. Kid is a gentleman.
Thank you, Kid. No, so as people who've seen me on the show before, I'm from New Jersey. This happens every cycle. This is literally every single primary in New Jersey, every single time. We have the most corrupt ballot design in the entire nation that literally gives an overwhelming advantage to incumbents just by being placed on this thing. If you follow me on Twitter or follow my show Upfront Now, you can catch all the info on this ballot design. We're literally the only state that has it. And, this happens literally every cycle. This is why we can't get solid progressives into Congress and into office. And the most we've been able to do is get solid progressives on like the local level, in a mayor's seat or in a council seat where the line, isn't as impactful. So this is my reality every year, actually. And yes, I would make a lot of noise about it, as I have been doing.
To Marnie's point, I agree with her completely. I live in the city of Chicago, and if I was running for office, look, I want to make the argument that Chicago, we are the heavyweights when it comes down to corruption in politics. But then again, every state can say, well, we're the heavyweight. But I like to think that Chicago is number one in this. On the one hand, running for any seat in Chicago or even any kind of state level district or federal district, it's important to note that you need to have a lot of money and you have to deal with the Illinois Democratic machine. And even though Speaker of the House Michael Madigan is no longer Speaker of the House, he's still somewhat the leader of the Democratic Party in some ways. The Democratic machine still plays an impact. So number one, I would make noise, but I would follow the example that Marie Newman did in 2018. She was going up against might as well call him Republican, Dan Lipinski, who was a Democrat but voted 99% of the time with Republicans. During her primary, there was a clear example of election fraud that was taking place. Votes were missing, votes and ballots were somehow magically disappeared. And I think it's important to note that, yes, you got to make noise, but also realize what you have to do for the next election so that you can at least do a counter move against the establishment that will try and rig your primary. Because let's face it, I want to quote E. Heller here, who said that the Democrats have argued, and we've seen them argue this in the past, that they can rig primaries. We saw it in 2016, in 2018, and in 2020. Election fraud is a serious issue. And in states like in New Jersey or in Illinois, where the Democratic machine has a lot of power, it can really cripple progressives. So progressives, on the one hand, need to have a strong war chest, but if they lose the primary and election fraud is seen, they have to make noise about it. But if they're going to run again, have plans ready for any kind of subversion or tactics and lawyer up. And in Illinois, for example, in Chicago politics, it's very expensive. So I would follow the example of Marie Newman. Like, okay, yeah, it happened, but she ran again in 2020. She won her primary, and then she won her general election. And now Marie Newman is House Representative of the 3rd Congressional District in the state of Illinois.
Gotcha.
So that's an example. But here's the thing with this question, it really depends on what city or state that individual lives in. Because you can make noise, but if you're going to run again, make noise, but what's your plan then?
Is it really through the lawyers, though, that you'll have to get it reversed?
Well, here's the thing. Again, with Illinois, our whole system is extremely antiquated and it's very corrupt. There hasn't been any kind of real accountability, and especially for the Democratic primary in 2020, we may never really know the full tally of those votes because it was mismanaged, and this was during the height of the lockdown or the beginning stages of the COVID-19 lockdown. So in Illinois, you do need to have money to make a case, especially at the Cook County level, at the city level, at the state level. And votes in Illinois, some of them actually disappear. Just one example, and I don't mean to rant on, but
in
2018, during the Illinois primary, during that midterm, Cenk Uygur and then Jimmy Dore, who was still on TYT at the time, were covering the Illinois race, and Marie Newman and her race against Dan Lipinski was being shown. And then at one point, Marie Newman's votes disappeared, and Cenk seemed shocked and said, "Wait, how does that happen?" And Jimmy turned to him and said, "No, that's Illinois. That happens all the time. Like, that's what happens in my state." Now, yes, have there been different measures put in, but you can't make the excuse and think that everything's okay, especially when you're in a state where corruption runs rampant at every level. Same thing like in New Jersey. So you gotta be ready for any kind of plan or tactic. So make noise, but be ready for the next time you choose to run, because you might have built a social media following. People are like, hey, you should run for office, but it's a tough fight.
All right. So anyone have any last words? And then I want to say my piece, and then we're gonna move on. Go ahead, Gabe.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna double down. I'm gonna say Florida is right up there too, because we're the only ones that have cost a presidential election where the losing candidate gave the winning candidate, or the losing candidate actually won. The other one is I don't know how many of you are familiar with Tim Canova's race, where Kit gave the example of a couple of votes disappearing. In the case of Tim Canova, they destroyed all of the ballots. All of the paper ballots were destroyed, and he actually sued, and they were found guilty of it. And nothing happened to them. So they had digital backups, so they said, but all the paper ballots were destroyed. Their internal polling had them winning that election, the Canova campaign against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. But not only did nothing happen, but even the Republicans that were in power in the state backed up Debbie Wasserman Schultz to keep her in there because they know she's more on their side than Tim would have been. So there's election fraud everywhere. There's corruption everywhere.
Yeah. They actually found there was a case. I was trying to look it up real quick, but of a Republican. Basically, they actually got caught. They had to do the election over because one of the operatives on this particular Republican campaign, he was going to people's houses. And I believe he was having them, like, he was taking their ballots, and it was a way that you could vote and you could hand in your vote and they would collect it for you and hand it in. But he was taking it and filling it in on their behalf or something. It was crazy. And they had to do the whole election over. And of course, that was on the Republican side. So it's just crazy how you find the people who are the most concerned about election fraud are the ones doing it themselves, pretty much. All right. Any last words before I move on? All right. I'm going to move on to this video that I want to show everybody. Let me jump over here. Boom. All right, and I'm going to play it.
Our ability to influence the situation now is very limited.
Well, David, that's striking considering how much money in aid we give to Israel. I'm surprised and I support that aid. So I'm not talking. I've been pro-Israeli for my entire life, but we give them aid, and you say that Netanyahu is saying this is going to continue for some time. it's a no-win proposition if you support Israel and you support Israel's stand.
I'm just going to show that part real quick. So that's David Ignatia. He's with I forget which exact. I don't know if it's the New York Times or he's a reporter, but he's basically saying, "Oh, America can't do anything about what's going on." And now I'm going to play this video that is the opposite view.
About the fact that Bernie Sanders tweeted out today and wrote an op-ed in the New York Times just yesterday talking about the funding that is given to Israel and how the U.S. needs to rethink the $4 billion that they give in aid to Israel every year as a way to figure out a solution to the conflict.
Well, the interesting thing here, Yasmin, is that Senator Sanders is not so much of an outlier in beginning to call into question whether American aid to Israel can be unconditional and unrestricted. You've had a series of senators, not a majority, this isn't about to pass a vote, but this feels like the shifting of an Overton window. This feels like something we haven't witnessed before in American politics, as a number of people are saying, wait a minute, we have rules that say that when we provide assistance, it has to be accounted for. It can't be used to violate people's rights. It can't be used for human rights abuses, for illegal actions such as settlements or disproportionate use of the military. We have to keep a check on what's being used. And the idea that America can sit on the sidelines because it has no leverage is patently absurd, given the numbers that you've just mentioned in terms of that assistance.
I want to leave.
All right, there it is. So I just want to read this. David Ignatia is a best-selling author and prize winner, columnist from the Washington Post, has been covering the Middle East and the CIA for more than 25 years. So there you go. That's a little bit of that guy's background. The guy that said, well, there's nothing much that America can do in this case. Come on. Go ahead, Kit.
No excuse at all. Look, we're supposed to be the bastion of liberty and freedom, democracy, America. You know, we have power. To say that we don't have any kind of leverage at all is the weakest excuse I have ever heard. Our lawmakers have the power to really bring into question the aid that we are putting to Israel. They have single-payer health care, yet we don't. And yet at the same time, too, we are witnessing them displace innocent people who don't have running water, don't have clean drinking running water, who don't have electricity, who don't have heating or cooling for their homes. Again, you know, the kids are deprived of any kind of normal childhood. You know, it's getting to the point of, well, wait, we do have power. We give them aid. But again, one of the sad facts here in this country, and this is why some lawmakers have allowed this to continue on for so long, is because of unchecked corruption, thanks to Citizens United and the McCutcheon decision, where money is speech and corporations are people. That means lobby groups that are also associated with Israel can basically buy off our politicians to where they don't say anything. But that's not working anymore. The video evidence is out there. People know that this is wrong and we should not be participating in it. What's the defense? The very sad fact that even Joe Scarborough said, well, wait a minute.
I know, right?
and this is a reach, because I'm not a fan of MSNBC or CNN. But even he's bringing it up. Everyone knows that, okay, it's not working anymore. And this has been going on for decades. It's not working. The lie is collapsing.
Yeah, we got to do something. I was like, wow, even Joe Scarborough, he said, and he tried to cover it up. Like, he tried to cover up the fact that he's about to tell the truth. Like, we could take away the eggs, but he's like, no, he had to put his disclaimer. I'm an Israel fan. I'm definitely a big Israel fan.
But then he said, but.
Yeah, exactly. Any last words? And then I'm going to go to the chat to give the chat some love, and then we're going to go to our next No Count Zone. Go ahead, Imani.
Yeah, I mean, we slap sanctions on countries that we just don't like because they just won't get along with whatever we tell them to do. We just slap sanctions on people easily. There is absolutely no reason why right now we cannot place sanctions on Israel for these crimes. I mean, there's literally no reason other than, you know, people don't have the will because they feel as though they are going to be funded in a certain way if they, you know, if they don't speak out against Israel. If they support Israel, they'll be funded and they'll be able to run office. Which, you know, by the way, I feel a way about that assumption, and I'm gonna say something that's probably maybe, you know, a little out there, but I think is true. I think it's it's really a little bit, really kind of anti-Semitic to say, oh, well, you know, if I go against Israel, or if I support Israel rather, then I'm going to get all of this money that Jewish people will give me. I feel like a part of that is just anti-Semitic. It assumes that, you know, all Jewish people have a lot of money, for one. And for two, it also touches on the fact that it assumes that all Jewish people are in support of Israel, which isn't the case, because Israel is a state, and this is state violence we're talking about here. So like, even that assumption is just so, the fact that it's just so
flippantly put out there
and frequently said by people who support Israel, and believed by people who support Israel, is really, I really feel a way about it. It really is a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, this is the tweet, the continuing of that thread that I was talking about earlier, where it said 38 billion in unconditional military aid over 10 years from Obama, and it said that is 10.4 million of U.S. military aid per day, every single day for a decade. 10.4 million. And remember, we always talk about the study that says that with just $20 billion, you can solve homelessness. You can house the unhoused with just $20 billion. And here we're giving 38 billion to Israel, literally for their military aid, which is to bomb and to kill women and children and families. That's just defenseless.
And remember, who was the vice president during that time, right? It was Biden. So he should definitely know how that bill is and how it was written and everything. And again, like Imani said, like the United States always brings its nose. Like if you go to all these Latin American countries, they don't like something about you, they just put their finger in there and they go in there and say, this is what we're going to do, and you're going to stop because we are the United States. So now you're giving somebody $4 billion and you're like, oh, sorry, there's nothing we can really do. Like that just doesn't add up.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I'm going to give some love to the chat. Mia, haven't seen you in a while. It's, much love to you. Erica says the things we could do with that money. SMH shakes my head. The one dude, he says, spit the truth. Kit's in the chat, much love. Alan Amberster, aka Neat, is in the chat. And we know Carlito is usually on the show. We miss our MVP. That's the MVP of Political Junkies, but he had some issue to take care of. But he's in the chat, so if anyone wanted to chat with him, E. Heller, much love to E. Heller, who's also, I see E. Heller everywhere, all the progressive shows, including our guy, Heartlands Media. And I just want to give a shout out. Amani, shout out your show for me. I don't want to forget that. Give you opportunity to plug it.
So everybody check out Upfront Now on Eyes on NJ News. You can follow Eyes on NJ News on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and IG. Also check out their website at eyesonnj.org. You can check out my show Upfront Now, where I cover all sorts of issues with regards to pushing New Jersey to the left. For those of you who didn't catch, our segment a few minutes ago, New Jersey is an extremely corrupt state. We have extremely corrupt politics and politicians, and I basically do the work of exposing that on the show. So check out Upfront Now every other Monday at 5 p.m.
Nice. So I want to shout out Jesus also in the chat, and somebody that just has the letter M as their screen name. Much love to you. Kit, go ahead and give you a shout out. Give you a plug real quick for the people.
All right. Well, Heartlands Media, it's HARDLENS MEDIA. Heartlands Media, we are Chicago's fastest growing independent media network. We've been around since 2017. We are live on YouTube. We're also live on Odyssey and Rockfin at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can also follow us on Twitter and join our Discord. We have all our links every time we go live in the description box below. We are trying to build something that has been seen in the city of Chicago, and that is a strong, progressive, independent media outlet that will cover stories that corporate media won't cover. And we are really excited about all the stuff that we are doing right now and how far we come. And we know there's more that we have to do, and it's because of our viewers that we are able to do everything. And we can't thank them enough.
Yeah, there's another person, Holly Horn, that's always in all over the place. I see her in a lot of at Heartlands Media and a lot of chats. Much love to you, Holly. Action speaks louder than I think politicians. Their screen name got cut off, but I think it's politics. Action speaks louder than politics, I believe. Hey, what's up to you too in the chat? Much love to you. So we're going to go on to our second discussion, no calzone discussion, and that is: would you rather have the COVID season or a second Trump term? And the reason why I say that, let me explain real quick why I say that, because I think most people would agree that if it wasn't for COVID, I think because of the power of incumbency, going back to George Bush Sr., that every president after him has had 2 terms. So I think if it wasn't for COVID, I think we would have a second term. And I would love to know if you guys disagree or agree, but let's get back to the original question. Which one would you rather have? The COVID season or a second Trump term? Imani, I'm going to go to you first. Ladies first.
I would say if I had to choose, I'm not saying I want this,
yeah,
but
of course,
if I had to choose, I would say a second COVID season, because I feel like if you go with a second Trump term, you're going to get 2 bad things. You're going to get a second Trump term and all of the bad stuff that comes with that. And because Trump was a terrible executive, he was terrible at being president, you're also probably going to get a worse case of COVID and another round of that. So if I have to pick one thing, if I absolutely have to, I'm going with the thing that's just get one bad thing as opposed to just like a heap of bad things. So I'm going to go with COVID season part 2.
So not part 2, just COVID period though. That's what I'm saying. So what happened? Like, last year, February with COVID happening, that's what I mean. Like, so with that happening or a second Trump term. So, cause I think if COVID didn't happen, like last February, let's say, the outbreak happened and China did the right thing and they contained it and boom, that's it. Nobody even knew what COVID it was, and we would never even know what a mask was, and all that stuff. And I think that Trump will probably have found a way to win. That's my personal opinion.
Trump was going to destroy Biden if it wasn't for COVID.
If it wasn't for COVID,
Trump lost the election himself. Like he just lost his stuff. But I think the question that you should ask is: should we rather have Joe Biden or just second Trump or a second Trump term? Would be a better question. But I'll let Gabe answer. I'm gonna go after Gabe because Gabe is laughing. I want to see if he's on the same page as me.
Go ahead, Gabe.
I mean, you just gotta, to me, I don't know the number of which deaths will be worse under Trump without COVID or the actual COVID. So I'm leaning towards second Trump term only because of just the number of lives and the number of deaths. So if you look at it just as in terms of human life, I think that you have to take COVID and get rid of that one. And it would be worth it to have a second term of the terrible Trump.
Okay, interesting. Bendone, you have an opinion?
I was basically thinking the same thing that Gabe said.
Okay.
I'd rather not do the deaths and just have people die out of the flu than anything else.
Okay, Kit.
This is a very difficult decision because what this reminds me of is what we were bombarded with in 2020, where, you got to vote for Biden because he's the lesser of the 2 evils. And this is a lesser of 2 evils question, because when you vote on this, you're still voting for evil. The incompetency of Donald Trump or the 600 plus that died during the first big wave of COVID-19. This is a difficult decision that, we have to really take into account. Now, thankfully, this is fictional. But I did know somebody, a close family friend, that died from COVID-19. But it was, again, the mismanagement of Trump. Trump lost this election himself. He was his own worst enemy, his ego and pride. But we, as a species, are due for something like this, for viruses and other crises to come up. But I think the caveat to take away from a second Trump term would be perhaps there would be a larger progressive movement. There would be more activism in the street, more accountability, calling about the kids still in cages. And maybe there would still be some pushback. Because right now everyone's at brunch. So if I had to choose, it would be a second term of Trump, because maybe that you could take away the hope of people would still be organized. People would not be at brunch, because right now, even though Biden is president, nothing has fundamentally changed. And I think we cannot lose sight that a lot of people think that it's over when it's not.
Hey, thanks for those words. And I have to say that at my job, my coworker who I work with closely, his father died during the pandemic still. And I asked him about, I didn't even ask him. I said, I know what you would pick because his father died. I'm sure anybody would rather have a second term of Trump to have their loved one with them, right? And so let me go to the chat. I think action speaks louder than words. That's her screen name. She said Bernie would have won if there wasn't COVID. So that's an interesting point of view. So let's say the COVID season didn't happen and there was a risk for a second Trump term. If we play that out, and Bernie and the Democrats, remember, they were the ones that they stopped knocking on doors earlier than Republicans, and Bernie started having to pull back. And even though Obama did consolidate the moderate vote, and Elizabeth Warren did not endorse Bernie, so there could be still an argument that Bernie could still lose, but there might be a little glimmer of hope that he could have won that primary. So maybe we don't have to choose between COVID and Trump. It could a second term of Trump. It could be COVID and Bernie. That's a way better choice right there.
I think probably Bernie just conceded way too early.
Yeah.
I think the COVID probably could have helped him because if he would have stayed a little bit longer, because you would have seen like the amount of people that couldn't get tested, couldn't have health care, and actually, if he would have held on to New York and to be a little bit later, he could probably had a better chance. But he just went in and said, "Hey, Joe is my friend, so I'm just gonna get out of the way."
Yeah. Yes. Totally.
But I think also COVID did a number on the ground game, and like one of the strengths that progressives have been able to really win campaigns with is a strong field and ground game. So that's interesting. I mean, I don't know if he would have pulled it out by that time because there were a number of things that kind of, there was Bloody Tuesday, I guess they're calling it now, which is like when everyone dropped out and endorsed Biden. I mean, there's a lot of things that happened at once. But I mean, that's interesting. It's an interesting thought, especially because COVID really did cut a major tool in the progressive campaign toolbox, which is field and ground game that like drastically changed.
100%. Yep, 100%. I want to read. Holly Horn said 600 deaths a day now, covering for Biden. But yeah, a lot of people definitely died under COVID. So I think it's pretty much the consensus that over our loved ones dying and having a whole bunch of people all around the world, it affected the whole world. So instead of having this pandemic, I think it's pretty much the consensus here that we would risk a second Trump term. Now, let's go down. Let's have that discussion. What if there's a second Trump term? Now, to me, in my personal opinion, Trump is a mess of a mess of a mess, right? This guy's just terrible. But he was slowly learning the game, and what I mean by that, he had, that spokesperson by the end of his campaign, that person that was his spokesperson that's on, I can't think of her name. Now she's on Fox News.
Canceled.
Wait, what happened? What do you,
yes,
why are you guys canceling
yes,
me?
Calzone.
Why are you canceling? I didn't even make my point.
Pepperoni.
I didn't even finish my point.
Didn't learn a thing.
The only thing that Trump learned, and that's what goes back to I think what we were talking about, was he had a strong Twitter follower and how to use it.
All right, hold on, John. For the love of God, before you cancel me, let me make my point.
No, cancel.
So Bill
That's how
Barr
canceling works.
So for example, Bill Barr was his attorney general. At the beginning, he had somebody else. The point I'm trying to make is he was putting in people in place that would literally do his bidding. Bill Barr was doing his bidding. By the end of his term, he put that person in place. I think not Kellyanne Conway, but the person that's like the Saki for Biden. I forgot her name, but she's on Fox. Oh, what's her name?
Haley, right?
Yeah. So that girl's a master at her job. She's a master propagandist. Like, she just knows how to talk. So he had her in place, and who knows all the other different positions that they were finally falling into certain places. Because remember, you had the attorney general, I believe, what's his name? That the guy from down south that he tried to run for Senate again. Man, he was a racist too. But even he withdraw himself, and he recused himself, and that's Jeff Sessions. Thank you, sir. And he had to leave. Right. So that's what I'm trying to say. At the very beginning, when Trump first got in there, he didn't have all the people in place that would clearly, bow down to their leader and do whatever he said. But by the end of the 4 years, he was finally putting people in place that if he had another 4 years, I fear our democracy would literally be in danger. That's the argument I want to put in versus COVID and a second term of Trump. I think a second term of Trump, one of the reasons you might not want to have it is maybe our democracy would literally be gone.
So in this multiverse, the insurrection would have never happened, right? Or
exactly. Yeah, the insurrection probably would not have happened because he would have won. He would have won. So yeah, the insurrection would never have happened.
Yeah, I don't think he's winning anything. I mean, I don't think he was getting better at anything. Even in this, alternate thing, if he
you're in the majority here.
Like,
Case is by himself.
We're getting all the
He
same.
was not getting
stuff.
better.
We're getting kids in cages. We're getting COVID part 2. We're getting like everything. Like with a Trump win, you're getting everything bad that comes with that. Plus COVID, and I'm not convinced that they wouldn't have stormed the Capitol. Found another reason. I'm not convinced that they wouldn't have. Like those folks. Do we?
It's the new tourist attraction.
Completely bypass this, but when white supremacists tried to kidnap that, I believe the governor of Michigan, it was a story for a day, and then it went away. But like, so white supremacists have been doing that for a while, like storming different places in stateside. So who's to say that they wouldn't have stormed the Capitol? I don't believe. I believe they would have come up with another reason. They just wanted to do it because they've gone over the rails, and we haven't done anything about white supremacy and white supremacist terrorism in this country. So they would have found another reason. I think a Trump presidency would just have. I agree. It would have gutted everything. We would have had COVID. Would have been worse. We would have had people storming every building stateside as well as the Capitol. We would have had just everything worse for 4 more years.
So I just want to clarify myself real quick. I didn't mean that he was getting better at governing. Let me just make sure I'm officially clear. I'm saying that
doesn't want to be canceled.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I'm clear on what I'm trying to say, because he was a mess of a mess. I'm saying that he was putting people in place. There was actually people who had a conscience. Remember Rex Tillerson, I believe he was the guy from ExxonMobil, that he had. A lot of people left early because they were like, you know what, this guy, I can't be loyal to this guy. So that's the only point I'm trying to make. He was putting people who are really, really big loyalists. I want to give a shout out to Convo Couch in the chat. Much love to you out there. So yeah, so let's finish up this conversation. Anybody have any last things to say? I know, right? Go ahead, Kit.
So if we're talking about a hypothetical second term of Donald Trump, would there have been a riot like we saw at the Capitol? Probably not, but there would have been more of a nationwide pushback and more protests like we saw in 2016 when Trump defeated Hillary Clinton. I think we would have saw that. But the one thing that's always going to be a what if, because this is a what if scenario. This is a caveat that impacts us as independent media content creators, as pundits, as journalists, as reporters in the field, as people that are commenting on things that we're seeing on social media. I'm curious to see whether or not we would have dealt with that same massive wave of censorship that right now that we are dealing with on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on YouTube. Many of our colleagues, the Convo Couch, Hardlands Media, Jimmy Dore, Graham Elwood, Ron Placone, the Mikasa Ukasa Network, Status Quo, Ford Fisher,
Joe Rogan,
Jackson Hinkle, Joe Rogan. Yeah, exactly. A lot of people within that kind of sphere, a lot of their content's being halted. A lot of their videos are being taken down. People are being demonetized, shadow banned. And I'm curious to think in that scenario, would we have, if Trump got reelected, would we have seen something like that? And again, to my point, there would be, again, still that progressive movement, that protest activist movement that we saw in 2016, 2020, where people were protesting Trump 24/7. I think there would have been a larger movement this time around. And who knows? Because right now everyone's at brunch. But I'll always wonder if in that scenario, would we have still dealt with this massive wave of censorship that we're seeing right now?
How much of that right now, though, is a mix between silencing, and I put that in quotation marks, to cancel culture and companies not wanting any backlash due to those content creators, right? Because some of the conversations I've seen around Joe Rogan, specifically Joe Rogan, at least have been Spotify doesn't want to lose some of the current subscribers based on Joe's comments, in more from a cancel culture perspective than anything else. I can't speak for the other shows.
Kate, what you think?
Like in regards to, well, here's what I did, and I want to be careful saying their names, but I know that there are trigger words that the YouTube algorithm goes after. Now, again, let's look at what happened on January 6th real quick. When Ford Fisher, the Convo Couch, and Status Quo were filming everything that was taking place on January 6th, a lot of their videos were taken down or demonetized, and their channels got hit hard. Yet CNN and Fox and MSNBC were using those same video footages from Ford Fisher, from Convo Couch, from Status Quo, and their channels are A-OK. Yeah. So the thing is, like, independent media, we're walking on eggshells, because when we want to cover controversial stories, we get hit because YouTube has made it clear their policy is to support authoritative sources. That means no matter what you do, it's if you're not part of that big club of corporate media that's right now taking up like the most trending videos on YouTube, well, then you are really out of luck. And even then, let's talk about trigger words, like that individual that somehow passed away in a New York prison, even though there are 2 security guards, and then all of a sudden the cameras went out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Or there's an individual somewhere in the European hemisphere that's in a fight for his life because as a publisher, as a journalist, he spoke truth to power and held those accountable, but yet he's in kangaroo court at the behest of 3 governments right now. Yes, and then there's another person somewhere in the Asian continent who used to work for the NSA, who basically told the American people, hey, you're being spied on. Now, I think we all know their names, but YouTube's blind algorithm attack dog, as soon as I say their names, this video could get hit. And that's something that I find very frightening happening under a Democratic administration. Of course, it was happening under Trump, but it's got heavily intensified since January 6th.
100%.
The Democrats really need to address. And again, with that what if scenario, if Trump got reelected, we may never know how that would have all turned out. Would things have changed? I think there would have been a much more pushback, protest, and more people speaking out than what we are seeing now.
Yeah, totally. Convo Couch agrees with everything you said. And they also mentioned the Action Summit, which I believe is coming up soon. So I want to, Kit, you're going to be a part of that. I want you to shout that out before we're about to end the show. I want to show one last video before the end of the show. But I want you to talk about that Action Summit. Then I'm going to go to the to the next thing. Go ahead.
The name of the summit is called the U.S. Solutions Summit. It's happening on May 22nd at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hard Lens Media will be part of it. The Convo Couch will be part of it. Jimmy Dore. So many other independent commentators and candidates, progressive individuals, activists, community organizers will be part of it. May 22nd, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, hosted by KRTDS Media. Please check it out. I know we are tweeting about it, but be sure to check it out. I know Convo Couch is tweeting about it as well. It's going to be a big event, and I'm very humbled to be part of it. We're going to be a small piece of a much more bigger conversation, and please, everyone that's watching,
that's how we. That's how we're going to solve this, guys. We got to come together. We got to collaborate. We got to build an infrastructure. And this is a people-powered movement. That's literally what the progressive movement is all about. We have to come together and we got to discuss it, because if we dependent on the rich people, if we're going to depend on the mainstream media to help us out, we know that that's not going to come. So we have to organize together. I'm going to show this last video. We're going to discuss it, and then we're going to talk to the look at the chat, and then we're going to end the show. I'm looking for, this is something different from the Israel-Palestine conflict. Let me play this from today.
What do you want to see out of this bill? Is the compromise that they're talking about some kind of limited qualified immunity that does allow suing some officers? Would that be good enough for you?
I think qualified immunity as it is should remain in the bill. I think that we are tired of having to compromise on things that really do not allow us to get full justice. And I think in the name of George Floyd and so many others who have fallen victim to police abuse, we need to see something that is strong. And I think the bill as it currently is should remain. And I think that the bill could even go further. So for us to step back in any way is harmful. And I don't believe that communities will feel safe and feel like this was done really in the best way that it could be if it is changed.
Awesome. So I'm just going to play that part. The video continues on. But I think Tamika Mallory, who's famously like a Black Lives Matter activist, who's a civil rights activist, I think she exemplifies exactly what I was talking about near the beginning of the show, of those organizations that's all the way to the left, where the people in Congress, you know, what I call the inside-outside game, they can point to Tamika and say, look at how strong she is on that stance. If we are to compromise, it needs to be closer to what she wants, or at least in the middle, or not. Because I believe the original plan from Tim Scott and that I believe also Booker, not Charles Booker, our New Jersey senator, they were trying to come up with a compromise, and it did not have qualified immunity at all, right? So now
Cory Booker.
Thank you, Cory Booker. So now you have here Tamika Mallory saying, no, we need to leave it in there as it is. But now, so you have the two sides. She's saying leave it as it is. Cory Booker and the Tim Scott, they were saying to take it out. Or I don't know if Cory, I wouldn't say Cory. I wouldn't put it on Cory, but at least Tim was saying to take it out completely. The middle ground now that Andrea Mitchell just said was that you have qualified immunity in some cases, right? So that's what's going on with this debate. What do you guys think? Imani, I'm gonna go to you first.
Oh yeah. I was about to talk anyway.
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
No, we don't need to be compromising on this anymore. Again, with issues of white supremacy, with issues where Black and brown people's lives are on the line, we have literally compromised the entire history of this country, and it never works. By the way, it's never a thing where, you know, the compromise happens and then a couple of years later, the people who were on the wrong side of the compromise are like, you know what, let's give them a little bit more. Like, it never happens. It always just slides back, however slowly or however quickly. So we don't need to compromise on this anymore. We know we don't need to compromise on it anymore. We need to either give people the ultimatum of like, we are going to get this through, or we are going to replace you and remove you and get somebody else in here who will get this through. It's time to be scrappy. About, you know, get with the program, and we're passing this, and we're passing it in a strong manner, in a way that speaks to that we haven't compromised, or we're going to replace and remove some folks. That's really like where we need to start being.
100% Kick.
100%. I have to agree with Sarmani. I mean, I'm basically going to be repeating the same thing that she's saying, and that is, look, you don't have the excuse to compromise. We have to keep pushing forward and being aggressive, and that means our lawmakers at the federal level, at the state level, have to be aggressive on this. Activists, community organizers, and social media. This has got to be an ultimate pushback saying no more, because how many times have we seen a compromise, and how has it worked out for the people? It's the people that get screwed over.
Exactly.
This is something that we can't compromise anymore. It's inexcusable. So Armani basically said everything that needed to be said, and I agree 100%. It's not only just be scrappy, but I think we got to start really punching and being very aggressive. I mean, it's no longer politeness has left the room. It's time to be aggressive and in the face of these politicians and lawmakers and realize they can't get away with it. So compromise is not the excuse.
100%. John, Gabe, or Bendone, anything?
They nailed it.
They nailed it. All right. I found that I had one more trivia question, and I was like, okay, I don't want to, let's leave on a high note, or at least on a fun note. Progressive pressure Senate to reject Biden pick. Let me say
all the people.
Let me say this again. Hold on. Progressives are pressuring the Senate to reject Biden pick from picking this person for Japan. No, I can't talk. For Japan ambassador. So which of these three people, who are progressive haters, by the way, these are progressive haters. Which one of these are the progressives trying to pressure the Senate not to reject? So we got Ram. Okay,
Rahm Emanuel, the former mayor of the city of Chicago, my own backyard. Rahm Emanuel, whose administration covered up the shooting of Laquan McDonald. Rahm Emanuel, whose administration turned a blind eye to lead in Chicago's drinking water. Rahm Emanuel, who allowed gentrification happening in African American and Latino communities. Rahm Emanuel, who shut down 54 Chicago public schools. Rahm Emanuel, who shut down half of the mental health facilities. The same Rahm Emanuel who basically allowed corruption to run rampant at all levels in the city of Chicago. That guy. He should not be ambassador to Japan.
I just don't understand what it's like. Biden's like love with this guy is he knows that he's definitely hated, and Like he was trying to nominate him for what was it, transportation and
Secretary of Transportation. Yeah,
it's the same thing with like Nia Taryn. Like he gave her some spot in there. Like, dude, like how, and this is when you get the LA Times and people saying, "Oh, he's so progressive." It's like, dude, like so this guy brings nothing to the table. Like, just let it go.
Here's a few of the progressive organizations that's speaking out against this Code Pink, Justice Democrats. Yeah, Progressive Democrats of America, People's Action. So there's a whole list of them. These are the progressive organizations that's putting pressure for him not to be in the administration, period. So, yeah, man, I don't know what the fascination with this Rahm Emanuel guy. He famously called progressives effing the R word, when he was the chief of staff for Obama. So he's definitely not a friend to progressives, and he's not a friend to change, positive change in America. So let's put it that way. But let's go to the chat. I'm going to give some love to the chat before we end the show. And actions speak louder than words. You said something earlier that I really liked, and I wanted to put. Okay, she put, independent media needs to support independent media, and that's so true. That's why my man Kit is on our show. Imani's on the show, and we just said in love. I'm hoping that Imani and Kit could link up at some point, and maybe she could go on Heartlands. We can make things happen. That's what this is all about, right? All right. What else are the people saying in the chat? Alan Amberster says someone from the summit should reach out to him.
There was a super chat.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there was a super chat from Combo Couch. The censorship today isn't about money; it's about control. Don't get it twisted. Much love to the Convo Couch. Thank you so much for that super chat. And you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Anyone want to shout out any other things in the chat before we end the show? My man Kid said deep dish pizza.
Carlito, I miss you today.
Yeah, we miss Carlito.
Sad.
Yeah, we miss
Ali Horn.
Ali Horn, E. Heller, Mia. Much love to Mia. Who else we got? Erica, much love. Action speaks louder than words. And so Imani, check out Imani at Upfront on YouTube. Check out my man Kit at Heartlands Media. I love Kit, who's always using Case Study QB, because it makes me feel like I'm doing something productive whenever you use my clips, man. I gotta say that, Kit.
Well, you know what? You're doing a lot of good stuff. And the thing is, you're capturing clips that normally disappear on social media. And I think it's very important that we understand what corporate media is talking about. And in very rare cases, sometimes we see them doing the right thing. But it's important that we understand just the situation of the press, of journalism in this country. And we have to shine a light on it and call them out for the hypocrites that the majority of corporate media truly is.
Yeah, totally. Imani, can you shout out? I don't have the link on me directly, but I know the Convo Couch, who is also a big media channel on YouTube. Much love to you, Convo Couch, again. Pasta and Fiorella. Imani, do you have like a link that you can put in? Maybe put it in the Zoom, and I could put it in the chat or something like that.
The link to Upfront Now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just whenever you get your chance. So
1 second.
Yeah, no problem. Take your time. Yeah, so what else we got in the chat as Imani gets that going? Another CMT63, much love to you, Chris. Came out, said another great conversation. Thank you so much. That's what this show is about. We cover the news, but I like to do something like, I want to specialize in something that we got Imani, you got Kid who do the news so well. Like here, we kind of specialize in doing no cow zone discussions. No cancellation. We can all, in our progressive family union, have tough discussions like the one at the very beginning of the show. We was talking about debating the Justice Democrats, and maybe we should have went back into that, but we don't have time for that right now. We're about to end the show. But we had a very good, healthy discussion, and we didn't cancel each other. That's what it's all about. And all right, so Imani, you put it in the Zoom. I'm going to grab that if you did. And then I'm going to put it in the chat for you, Convo Couch. And
Imani, I could see about having you on our show too. And I think you've recently followed me on Twitter. So
yeah, you gotta follow me back. See,
yeah, I did. I just did.
Nice.
I just did. Let's try and get ourselves situated. We could see if we can have you on maybe next month.
Yeah.
There's a lot that I'm working on, but I would like to actually have you on our show.
Let's do it. We got to vibe over Chicago, New Jersey corruption. We gotta earn some things.
I think we'll have a lot in common.
Yeah.
More so, and it'll be very frighteningly.
Whatever you do, just don't get on the pizza conversation because
we know it's that.
Chicago style.
Yeah. Kid also has Chicago.
Connecticut.
Oh, Connecticut. Been known as in Connecticut.
let's not get on that.
The big leagues.
Cancel. We're gonna put the no cancel zone on pause just to cancel by Bendone over here. No, I'm just kidding. But Kid also has Chicago Corner. That's another like a branch off channel. So just want to shout that one out. All right, everybody. I put the link for Upfront in the chat for everybody. And much love to you. Could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that. Political junkies, you lasted this long. That means you're a political junkie also. Welcome to the team. See you next Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm Imani, Kit, John, Gabe, Bendone. We are out of here. Much love. Adios. All right, let me put on the end scene. Shout out to our Patreon members, Pedro Menendez and Nancy Gancher.
Now, we dance.
I know, right?
How come we're not dancing anymore?
We used to have